This is the strategy that I use to find this play that hits 92% of the time in the NFL. Now, I know it might sound a little bit crazy, but just so far this season, this is hitting at a 92% rate. So, first thing, what type of play is this? It is a first half total under, okay? So it's first half total under, and it's going to be an alternate number. Now, a lot of the times you guys always see me in different videos always do alternate numbers. Why is that important? Alternate numbers are important because you don't want to take the line that the sportsbook's going to give you. That's the line you're going to lose with. No matter you're on the over or the under, you're always going to end up losing somehow long term. You want to make the lines yourself and adjust it to what you want them to be, not what the sportsbook wants you to bet with. So we're looking at a first half total under alternate number. Now, let's list the sportsbooks before we get into it. The sportsbooks that allow this. All right, there are a couple, so I will list them here for you. All right, first is BetMGM. Next one's going to be FanDuel, DraftKings, and then for those that are offshore that need offshore sportsbooks, or you're in a state where it's not allowed, you don't get any of these, you can use Flip. Okay, so no excuse not to be able to bet this play, whether you're in a state where it's legal or where it's not legal. You still have access to either sportsbooks here. Now I'm going to get into the exact number that you need to have for your alternate first half a little bit later on in the video, because first I want to go over the major important things that you need to implement into the strategy before even finding what number you're going to do. So let's go ahead and jump to number 3 here. Number 3, what we're going to do is we need to look at some NFL team stats. All right, which stats are we looking for? Well, there's going to be 2 different types of stats that we're looking for. So the first one is going to be on the offense. All right, so offense, yards per play. So what does that mean? This means the average yards per play, meaning that big play potential. Okay, so if a team is in the top 5 for yards per play, that means on the offensive end, they tend to create big yardage plays somehow, whether it be through the ground or through the air. So when we're looking at an under, right, because that's what this play is going to be, we obviously don't want a team that's going to be having that big play potential, because that's what's going to run up the score. So we don't want that. So what you want to do is you want to make sure for the NFL team stats that the yards per play on offense, that these teams rank in the bottom 5th to 8th. Okay? 5th to 8th in the bottom. All right? Meaning all the way from the worst down to pretty much the 8th. You could stretch it to about the 8th worst in offensive yards per play. Now, if you're looking for a website to be able to find this right here, the statistic, it's going to be called Team Rankings. Team Rankings. And all you do is you go to that and you'll go to team stats for the NFL, you go to total offense, and then it'll say offensive yards per play. All right, this is very important. All right, this is the biggest part of literally the strategy, is what I'm teaching you right here. Now let's go ahead and get to number 4. Now, as you can see, I left up here the team stats, offensive yards per play, because that's very important. Now, we need to obviously look on the opposite side of this now. Okay, so the same thing. It'll be NFL team stats, and you're looking at defensive. All right, so defense yards per play. Okay, so defensive yards per play, and in this category, we want the top 5, and you can stretch it to the 8th. Okay, the top. Why do we want the top defense in yards per play? Because we want them to not allow any type of big plays that could run up the score. Now, I know that explaining this could be common sense, and it should be common sense for a lot of people when you're betting totals of any kind for over-unders, that you obviously want to make sure the team stats line up perfectly with what you are doing. Because obviously, if we're looking at an under, then yeah, you want the offensives to be pretty bad, but you want the defenses to be pretty good. Sounds common sense, right? But a lot of people overlook it. A lot of people just they don't even look at this stat, to be honest with you. They don't even look at this stat. They'll look at points per game. Now, that's just your average Joe stuff, is looking at points per game allowed. That's not what you want, okay? You want to look more in detail, because this is actually very detailed to totals. Yards per play, that's huge when it comes to looking at totals. Not points per game allowed or first half points per game allowed. That's not really where you need to look. You need to look more in depth. That's why this strategy works at such a high clip, is because you're looking way in depth at certain numbers. Now again, this play wins at 92%, right? It sounds crazy, but it's going overlooked in a lot of sports books, and they haven't caught on to it. Just 92% clip if you follow the directions that I'm giving you here. Now we're going to jump into the exact number that you need to land on to make it 92%. Now let's get to the exact number that you need here. So when you look into your sports book and you look at the first half total, you're probably going to see something like this. All right, it's probably going to say your over-under is going to be looking like that. All right, it'll be like 23.5 or whatnot. Obviously, not what we're doing, right? It's not what we're doing. We're making our own line here. So the number to get a 92% win rate so far this season with what I just showed you, as long as those teams are lining up where the offensive yards per play are in the bottom half and the defensive yards per play in the top half, is this number right here, okay? 28.5 for the first half alternate total. This number right here, it's 92% of the time. You're looking at, obviously, the under. Okay. Now, why does this happen? Not just because of what I just explained to you with the top, defenses and the bottom offenses for yards per play. That's not exactly the reason why this just works in general. It's the key number. The key number that people don't realize here. And I don't know how the sportsbooks haven't caught up to it yet, but we'll see what happens. But this key number right here is huge. And this is the reason why. In the NFL this season, the average possessions that they're getting in the first half total is 8.2. That's the average possessions that are having. Okay, so pretty much each team's almost getting 4 chances there, okay, to score in the first half. Now, translate this number to up here. What you need to go over 28.5 points is more than 4 touchdowns. You need 4 touchdowns and a field goal. So that's 5 possessions, okay? You have to score. The teams have to score on 5 possessions. When the average in the NFL, you only get 8 possessions to score. So they literally need to score almost every single possession or have a chance to score at least something in every single possession. Because they would have to score a touchdown in 4 possessions and kick a field goal on that 5th possession to be able to go over that number here, which is nearly impossible because of, like I said, the defenses and the offensive wise of when you tweak that strategy together, you're having plays, a defense that's not giving up big plays. So if they're not giving up big plays, they're running the clock. The offense, the team they're going against is running the clock because they're not creating big plays. And then on the offensive end, that team's not creating big plays offensively, so they're burning the clock as well. So actually the league average goes way down. When you put those stipulations together that I showed you, where the top defense, bottom offense, the possessions actually drop to 6, the average. The average drops to 6. So now, think of this. Out of 6 possessions, they have to score on 5 of those 6 possessions to be able to go over that number. Nearly impossible. Again, it's nearly impossible. And that's why this is hitting at such a high rate. And yes, the odds on this are a little bit high, but again, it doesn't really matter because, to be honest with you, put it this way. Let's say the odds on one of those are minus 300. Well, your implied probability there is 75%. But your true probability is actually 92%. What does that create there? That creates a plus 17% edge, which is almost unheard of in the NFL. That's why you're able to figure this out and actually profit time and time again, literally, when the stipulations line up.